John's account of the raising of Lazarus is the last of the three great catechetical gospel stories taught to the catechumens of the early church as they prepared to receive baptism at the Easter Vigil. Over the past 2 weeks, we have listened to John's gospel. First, with Jesus' encounter with the woman at the well, where he makes reference to living water. And last week, the healing of the man born blind who can now see outwardly the beauty of creation, the splendor of the temple, but also inwardly to see Jesus, who he really is, the promised Messiah, the anointed one of God. In the early church, the sacrament of baptism was often referred to as illumination. To be converted to Christ and washed free of sin was to pass from darkness to light, from confusion to truth, from distorted vision to clear vision, and ultimately from death to life. In today's gospel, Jesus heads for Bethany, and two dramatic moments occur. First, the conversation between Martha and Jesus that ends with Martha's confession of faith in him as the anointed one of God. The second, Lazarus, is called out from the grave by the power of God at work in Jesus. The breath of life is called back by God, who first breathed life into man in creation. We have all received the water of life in our baptism. Our blindness has been cured. We are children of the light. But in our failure to embrace fully the imitation of Christ, our lack of real conversion, we are like the uncomprehending disciples and the unconverted crowd in Bethany, whose lack of belief causes Jesus to weep in frustration. And like Martha, we too are called to a confession of faith in Jesus as Lord. And ultimately, we are like Lazarus. Because of our baptism resurrection, we too are raised. We too are unbound and our eyes opened. We too are set free to live the new life that cannot be taken away, not even by death. But in spite of this creed of faith we profess, the reality is, in many ways, we are like Lazarus, still bound in the tomb. We are trapped in a tomb, hidden in the dark and the decay and the stench, wrapped up in our own self-love, our own sinfulness, and our own indifference to the suffering around us, our own lack of faith. In the midst of that, Jesus still weeps today. He weeps for us, because he loves us and has lost us. He wants to bring us back. And unexpectedly, incredibly, wondrously, he calls out to us. But do we hear him? Are we even listening for his voice? During the Second Conclave of 1978, then Cardinal Karol Wojtyła was shaken by the way the voting was going, as it indicated that he might be elected Pope. The Belgian prelate, Cardinal Furstenberg, posed the question to him, God is here and calling you? Cardinal Wojtyła had a special affection for the Gospel of John, so he could not have missed the subtle challenge posed by his old rector. Can you, like Mary, who could not understand why Jesus had not come earlier and saved her brother, conform yourself to the Lord's will, no matter how puzzling it may seem? The same question is posed to every Christian of every time and place along the itinerary of conversion. Will I conform to God's will for me? So there is perhaps for many of us another tomb that we may be living in, hiding in, because of fear. Fear of being humiliated or ridiculed for practicing our Catholic faith, for adhering to the truth of the gospel, or a tomb created by our indifference or lack of faith, where I feel that no matter what I do, the world is in such a sorry state, it just won't make a difference. And so once again, Jesus cries out to each one of us, come out of your tomb. Be not afraid, I'm with you always. Trust in me. Be the disciple I have called you to be. Spread the good news. Accept the unique role I have given you and only you for the salvation of the world. As we continue our own Lenten journey, remember the woman at the well and the beggar who was blind. Both were transformed by one encounter with Jesus. And remember especially Lazarus. Remember how Jesus wept for him, and remember how he then cried out, come out. He's weeping for all of us. He is calling to all of us. Follow the sound of his voice. Grope toward the light. It may seem like hope is lost, like nothing can change. It may even seem to some of us like we're as good as dead, but we aren't. We can begin life anew. All of us can start again, just like Lazarus. During this year's Lenten journey with the ongoing pandemic, God has placed us in the desert. For the most part, we're isolated in solitude. Entertainment of every sort has been curtailed. Distractions have been removed. Even the Holy Mass has been curtailed. And so we have two choices. We can lament our lack of entertainment, our inability to socialize at will, or we can take this opportunity to individually pray, reflect on Scripture, take advantage of our time in the desert to make our Lenten journey one of real conversion and draw ever closer to God.